In section 10.3, we're going to talk about positioning of data in frequency distributions, other types of positioning. And we're going to start by discussing quartiles. And quartiles essentially divide data into 4 roughly equal parts. So let's say I take and I roll 2 dice. And I read the numbers off the top and add them together. So I get a 6 and I write it down. And I roll the dice again and I get a 2. I roll again, I get a 7. I roll again, I get another 7. I roll again, I get a 5. I roll again, I get a 4. I get an 8. I get an 11. And I get a 3. So I roll the dice 9 times. And here's my result. So I could create a frequency distribution with this result. But I only have one number I rolled 2 times. Nevertheless, there's still a lot of information here. So perhaps I want to do a bit of a positional analysis with quartiles. Well, the first thing I need to do is I need to essentially order my data. And I've done that here with the lowest to the left, highest to the right. Now the second quartile of the data corresponds with the midpoint of the data, or the median. So I can just find the median of this data, and I do that by counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This looks like the median there. Just double check it, coming the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the median is 6, and I'll call that 6 our second quartile. And what that number represents is the middle of the data, and roughly 50% of the data is less than 6, and roughly 50% of the data is greater than 6. Now if I want to split this into 4 equal sections, then I need to really take the median of this first half and find my first quartile then. So let's use a different color here. So I'll count over 1, 2, and then this way 1, 2. So it looks like this is the middle. It's between 3 and 4. So I take 3, I add it to 4, 7 divided by 2, I get 3.5. So Q1 equals 3.5 is our first quartile. That means everything to the left of 3.5 is in the first fourth of the data. Between the first quartile and the second quartile, the second fourth of our data resides. And now I did the third quartile, which is between 7 and 8. So I take the average of those two. So if I'm taking the median of these 4 data points, 7, 7, 8, 11, the median that is 7.5. That is the third quartile. So I have the first, second, and third quartile now for my data set. This is how you would work your quartile problems. Now there's a nice graphical way to represent this. What I could do is create a point here over a number line. So I created a number line for reference. It goes from, say, 0 to infinity. Here I've got it marked to 10 and 11. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to put a dot here for my lowest point, 2, in my data set, and then a dot for my highest point, 10. And I'm going to imagine a line between these two. And now I'm going to mark my first quartile, 3.5. 1, 2, 3.5, which is right here. My second quartile is 6, right here. And my third quartile is 7.5, 5, 6, 7.5 is here. So this will be Q1, Q2, Q3. And now I want to draw lines to connect the couple points here, like so. And finally, I'm going to put a box in the middle, like so. This box represents the bulk of my data. I can indicate here inside this box where my second quartile or the median resides. And this sort of plot gives us a lot of information at a glance concerning our data set. And we call this, appropriately, just a box plot. So that's how you create a box plot. So you have your first point of your data on the left side, the last point of your data on the right side. You mark where your first quartile is. You mark where your third quartile is. Then you create a box where the edges of the box touch the first and the third quartile. And then you can come back and you can highlight where the median is in your box. Box plot. You might see these around. That's what a box plot is, and that's how it represents data. So this is good information concerning the positioning of data. So another way of talking about positioning is with percentiles. Percentiles break your data up into 100 parts. And it's not as confusing as it sounds. You can just think of a big data set broken up into 100 parts. And then we find what percentile you're in based on where you fit in the data, or where the point of interest is in the data set. And everything to the left of it is the percent of data, is the percentile will be used to create the percentile that you exist in. Let me just demonstrate. Let's say, for example, you scored 10th highest on an exam out of 250 people that took the exam. So in effect, 240 people scored below you. Well, let's figure this out. Let's figure out what percentage of people scored below you. So 240 is what percent of 250? So, in other words, so that's our question. 240 is what percent of 250? Essentially, we want to solve this algebraic equation. 240 equals x times 250. So, with simple algebra, naturally, this is 240 over 250, which is 0.96, or 96%. So we could say that 96% of people scored below you. 96% of people scored below you. So this corresponds to the 96th percentile. So you scored in the 96th percentile. So what was your class rank here? Well, you scored the 10th highest on the exam. There are 9 people in front of you. So your rank is 10. class rank is 10th, or the 10th person. Another way to calculate that, I mean, it's kind of intuitive here, but the way you might calculate that is we would take their percentile, 96, so 0.96, multiply it by the number of people in the class, we end up with, damn you, what's going on here, 240. So the rank equals 250 minus 240 equals 10. Why is understanding how to calculate that important? Well, you might want to know the class rank of somebody else. Like, what is the class rank of a student in the 36th percentile? So we could do the same thing. 0.36 times 250 equals, here I've done some more calculations, equals 90. So then I take 250 and I subtract 90, and that's their rank in the class, which is 160. Okay, pretty straightforward. So you could have all sorts of different types of ways to break up your data set into positional data. But percentiles and quartiles are two of the main ways, and kind of a subclass of percentiles maybe is your class rank.